You're listening to Parasearch Radio, news, views and reviews from the world of the paranormal from across the UK and beyond. Find us on Facebook, Twitter and the World Wide Web. Parasearch UK Radio. Parasearch Radio, broadcasting to the UK and beyond.
The views and opinions expressed by presenters and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Parasearch Radio or its affiliates and sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Hello, this is Richard Estep, ghostwriter, and from TV's Haunted Hospitals, Paranormal Investigators, Haunted Case Files, and Paranormal 911, and you are listening to PSH Radio on Parasearch Radio.
And good evening, everybody. My name's Carl Hutchinson. It's Thursday night, 9 o'clock on the 28th of February, last day of the month. We're here on PSH Radio on the Parasearch Network. I'm on my own this evening. I'm flying solo. The lovely Sam isn't feeling too good, so I've given her the night off. So you're left with my dulcet tones for the evening. We've got an amazing guest in the studio this evening. He's a friend who I've spoken many times and investigated so many times with. So we're going to bring him on in a second, but I'll just want to welcome everybody on. If you're listening, there is the chat room. Click on that. Click on the little speech bubble. Get involved. Send your questions in. I do apologise. I've got a bit of a croaky voice, so if I do go a little bit screech out of Saved by the Bell, I do apologise. So yeah, get involved on the chat room. Send your questions in via the social media networks. And yeah, we're going to bring on the guest tonight. So we're joined in the studio this evening by paranormal investigator and all-round tech geek like myself, Mr. Graham Smith. Are you there, Graham?
I am. Thanks for having me on the show, Carl. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. My pleasure. Been looking forward to this one for a while. Do apologise if Graham's having a little bit of a few issues with his internet provider. So if he does go a little bit croaky, we do apologise. So, Graham, for the listeners out there and everybody in the chat room and in cyberspace, just want to give a quick, brief outline of who you are, what you're about, and then we'll crack on to the more interesting stuff.
Okay. Well, my name is Graham Smith. I kind of define myself in the paranormal field as a scientific researcher, basically because the sole aim of what I try and achieve is to understand paranormal phenomena from a scientific side of things, understand the kind of paranormal mechanics, how things work and occur when phenomena manifest, etc. So that's predominantly what is my main focus in the field. So what I've kind of done is started to look at means of gathering data that supports a particular theory that I'm interested in, which I'll probably get around to a bit later. So I've set up one experiment that tests an element of this particular theory, and I'm also in the process of building another experiment which should test another element of that theory as well. So that's predominantly what I'm working on and what I'm about currently within the field.
Okay. We'll cover a few of those points in a little while. First of all, I just want to go about your early years in the paranormal, because you've been investigating the paranormal, or researching the paranormal, should I say, for about almost 10 years. And you started off and you were you were running events and you were part of Paranormal Society. You set up RSVP UK. Yeah. Do you want to just tell us the concept of how you first got into the field?
Yeah, certainly. Well, I think like most people, there's certain things that grab your attention, especially when I was a lot younger, when I was in my kind of teens, there were certain programs on the TV that kind of fascinated me. And I think where my kind of passion for the paranormal really started off was when I first watched an episode of Strange But True, and it was an episode around the Enfield poltergeist. Though I was very intrigued by the episode, it also kind of freaked me out for a couple of weeks. So it was, didn't quite enjoy going to bed at night for a good month or so. But after that, I'd say, that kind of grabbed my attention. And I think over the years from then, I dabbled into reading a little bit, in books on the paranormal. And, I used to kind of be entertained by watching the earlier episodes of Most Haunted. But it wasn't until my kind of mid to late 20s where my kind of passion for the paranormal it went to its next level. And it was, and you go on.
No. Go on, Karen.
Okay. Yeah. So that was when I kind of started watching on YouTube, which a very popular TV show in America called Ghost Hunters, with Jason and Grant, and I just loved watching them episodes, and I just loved the way that they used to carry out their investigations, and it really intrigued me. I loved all the equipment they were using, and I just decided one day, do you know what? I'm just going to buy some of my own equipment and and go and do my own thing. So I managed to pick up a K2 meter, an infrared camera, and then one day, a friend of mine said, look, I work at a haunted location. Do you want to come and I do a quick paranormal investigation there? I was like, yeah, no problem. So went along and one night and did a couple of hours at this place, and that kind of then kick-started that kind of part of my journey, really. So after that, me and a friend of mine, we were kind of discussing our interests in the field, and we thought that it might be good to kind of start up our own kind of little events business. So we did that. So we set one up and run some local events at a location near where I live called Bradwell Abbey in Milton Keynes. And we formed a really good kind of working relationship with the director there at the time. So for the first year or so, we were fortunate enough to have this location for free, as it was kind of promotion. It was promoting the kind of premises, as for what we were doing. So what we did was we started inviting friends of ours to kind of join us and kind of see how we got on with doing it and run these little events and stuff. And they were quite successful, so we just continued doing it. So after about 18 months of doing that, I think I got to a point where I realised that, though it was enjoyable and I was getting to do investigating on a regular basis, I wasn't actually personally able to do it myself. I was obviously entertaining other people and ensuring that they were enjoying the experience. And there was lots of things that, over the course of the events we run that I had witnessed and observed, and I thought I need to find out more about this. And the only way I'm going to do that is if I'm investigating it for myself with the equipment that I have available. So I decided that I wanted to step out of that. So I did so and decided that I would set up my own paranormal society. And that actually really for me, there was the best step I ever made, really, because that's when I formed RSVP UK. And I kind of set that up with my best friend at the time. And I think we started that around 2012. And we got that up and running. There was a group of four of us. We kind of wanted to keep it small at the time because, obviously to kind of allow people to, because the aim of what we were trying to do was build case files and try and minimize kind of contamination in the investigations. So it gives us the best opportunity to capture the evidence without kind of having too many people around. So we wanted a small group of people, and we would take it in turns in who would kind of search different parts of premises and who would monitor, etc. And that worked really well. And we found that, we was able to document our cases in great detail. And one of the things that we kind of really liked was that, the relationship we created with our clients, and we produced, really detailed documents for them to have, and with regards to the cases that we used to obviously cover for them, and I think quite quickly we grew in popularity, especially in the Milton Keynes area, but also started to kind of become a bit more of a well-known name, sort of nationwide, I would say. And I think we started to make a name for ourselves. And one of the things that was quite good as well was my best friend was his profession is graphic design and is very good in marketing. So he was able to kind of design things in a way that would capture people's attention and stuff like that. So we were able to kind of promote ourselves very well with that sense. But that was just one side of it. My main focus was delivering on what we would say we were going to deliver for our clients, and and building up these case files. And the whole point of us building these case files was to gather the information in order to try and find out more about the phenomena we were experiencing and try and find more answers in connection with it.
Yeah.
So I think over the next 2 to 3 years of running a society, in the kind of traditional manner that most groups do, with their investigations, I come to a point where I realised that this is all great. I'm getting some really good evidence, and with video and audible evidence, etc. But I wasn't kind of getting anything else from that. Maybe I'll get like a kind of a detection on one of our meters, etc. as well, and gives me some various reading, whatever. But that wasn't really providing me with what I thought I needed. It wasn't giving me anything new to work.
Yeah.
Sorry.
What you're saying is you had the passion, you wanted to get in there, but there was something that was missing that you needed to address, and something that you needed to look at in a little bit more detail.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that was when, like, I did, to do something a bit different, Carl. So then what happened was, and it just seemed to be like certain events just happened at the right times. So I remember I was watching this documentary once on, and this is a completely different subject, by the way. I'm also very into like great white sharks, and I was watching this documentary on one episode of where they were talking about this tagged great white shark that they kind of monitored over a series of days, and they managed to basically, with this kind of tag, it detected this great white shark kind of descending down at an incredible depth. And what it was recording was temperature, etc. as well. And they noticed that one day the temperature went from went from really cold to kind of like body temperature warmth, and it stayed like that for 2 days. And then obviously, then what happened was gradually, this sensor, started to rise back to the surface, and they noticed the temperature obviously going back to kind of sea temperature and stuff. So when they retrieved the data, what they kind of came to the conclusion was that at some point at this depth, this shark was consumed by some other creature. Yeah, because obviously it was because of the change in temperature and stuff. And I thought, wow, look how much they were able to tell just from that data. And that made me think, do you know what? I need to start working on gathering more data in connection with the paranormal phenomena. So it just so happened at the time when I came to that realization that we had another member join our team, and he was a software developer, and also was able to dabble in kind of electronics as well. Yeah. And when I discussed this with him, he said, do you know what? I can build you one. And I said, what, a data logger? And he said, yeah. And I was like, well, fantastic. So, I said, right, okay, here you go. I threw some money at him, and I said, okay, this is what you've got to work with. Can you build something with, with this much? And he said, yeah, that's not a problem. So he went away, and within about 2 weeks, he said, look, I've got you this. And he built us our own customized data logger. Yeah. Which was able to kind of monitor temperature, humidity, air pressure, electromagnetic field, and magnetic field. And what was kind of good about it at the time was that it was a wireless data logger, and he was able to create the software that we could use on our phones. So we was able to have it set up wirelessly within the location, and we were able to not necessarily have to stay at a monitoring station, but we could monitor the data throughout the location on our mobile phones.
Yeah.
So we could see live any kind of differences in the data, and you know, and he set it up in so many different ways that you could either see it in kind of, you know, the data, the numbers coming up in, you know, in various different sequences, or you could see it in graph form. It was amazing. It was amazing, and it really kind of transformed how we kind of started, you know, gathering our, you know, data with regards to paranormal phenomena. And so then I started to focus more on that. But I think what happened was, after that, you had elements of the team that wanted to remain kind of doing the, you know, the general kind of paranormal investigation side of things, using kind of, your audio devices, your video cameras, and kind of gathering that type of evidence.
The normal day-to-day stuff that paranormal investigators use.
Yeah, absolutely. But I really wanted to kind of invest more time in the more scientific, the more data analysis, that side of things. So I think what happened was we kind of went our different ways gradually, and I just then decided that, you know, RSVP UK, as the society that we set up, it no longer worked for what I wanted to achieve in the field. So sadly, I was hoping that one of my old team members would carry it on, because it was a really great society, you know, for what we had achieved and what we were doing. But sadly, I wasn't able to get someone to carry on with the society. So it's that we had to fold it, which was gutting, really.
Okay, so you've basically got to a point in your paranormal career, which I think most people out there will get to, if they've not already been, what they want to focus on, whether it's basically, as you said, scientific, more of the normal equipment, the spiritual side, etc., etc. So everybody gets to that point.
Yes.
So you then decide, right, this is my path. I'm gonna go down. Is this when you came up, or you started to specialise in the supergeometric theory?
Not at this point, no. Right. It was a little bit.
Before that, then you're obviously doing the data capture. You've been very lucky to have somebody that's basically been able to give you an all area geometric theory, basically collecting all your data, your air pressure, your EMF, and all that sort of stuff. So were you using that? Were you, because I've investigated with you a few times, and the way you investigate is probably, there's only probably a couple of people that I've ever investigated with that go down the same theory matter that the way you investigate. You spend a lot of time with your, like, looking at the location when you're there, setting up your experiments, and then concentrating on that. But you remote view them. You know, you're basically sitting there and watching the data.
Yeah.
That's what I've witnessed, and obviously I've been on the other side where you told me to go and investigate that area while you've monitored, etc., etc. So, and it's a very interesting way of looking at it. And I've sat back on a couple of investigations, just watching what you, and obviously the other person that investigates in exactly the same way is obviously our friend Ashley.
Yeah.
And he does exactly the same. So it's all about data. So you're monitoring. So you're looking at the data. You're looking at possible areas where you can think there's a common link to activity.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of. What I can do, I can expand on kind of where we go with regards to the supergeometric theory that I'm into, because what that came across with regards to when I decided to break from the society. That was when I started looking at, okay, well, what do I need to focus my attention on? And I think one of the problems that you find in the field is that, you know, one of the main kind of phenomena that people observe through their kind of the equipment that they use is generally going down the electromagnetic field route. because that seems to be one of the more popular tools to use, and etc. So I was kind of looking once again down that line of like, thinking, and so what I'm looking also as well for is I'm trying to find something out there that kind of gives me some sort of model, some framework to work from, that gives me something to aim at, a focus, because it's quite difficult within the field to kind of find something to kind of grab hold of and work towards, because it's so varied and it's so unknown. And it was about probably another year before I got to that point, and it was only one day when I was doing a bit of decorating work at home that I just went onto YouTube, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to type in paranormal science. So I typed that in, and it came up with this radio show of this gentleman called Thomas Fusco.
Yeah.
And I thought, I never usually listen to radio shows in that sense, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to listen to this show. So I clicked on it and started listening. It was a 2.5 hour show, and I was just completely blown away by this show. And when he started, the way he was talking about his work and how it connects to different types of phenomena, it basically, for me, it gave me something to finally focus my attention on. This was the framework I was looking for to kind of drive my my interest in kind of going down the understanding paranormal mechanics. So I thought, right, I need to look into this. So he's written a book on this theory that he came up with, which is called the book is called Behind the Cosmic Veil. It's a fantastic book. But
that arrived yesterday, actually.
Have you got it? Have you?
Yeah, I bought it a couple of weeks ago, and it finally arrived today. I've for some reason I've got into buying books at the moment. So every time I come in from work, there's about 4 or 5 books on my thing. So I'm getting a lot of books that I've been meaning to read, and funny enough, Ashley mentioned the book. So I bought it. So it arrived yesterday. So
yeah. Okay, well, I would say I suggest that make that one of your, not necessarily, you have to make it your top, but make it one of your top priorities to read, Carl. It's fascinating. It's fascinating. So again, once I purchased the book, I read it, and it for me it was the biggest eye opener, and I thought, you know what, I've now got something to focus my attention on. This is what I need to, whether or not the theory, and the science behind it, has any weight to it, I don't know. But, finally you've got something that, basically, for example, his theory gives you, it makes scientific predictions that are testable within our local environment. Okay. So basically, the mechanics behind this theory, the actual effects of the mechanism can be observed, and what can be observed in a haunted location. Yeah. So that's where it gave me something to focus my attention on. So I kind of thought about it for a while, and I kind of, thought, well, how am I going to do this? And so basically, with this theory, there's basically, with paranormal phenomena, people, one of the main claims are, that these kind of electromagnetic fields materialize, and temperature fluctuations materialize, and air pressure, so forth. Yeah, but these sometimes materialize without any source for that to occur. And what this theory states is that there is one particular event or effect that can cause these effects, and that is that when this theory predicts that there can be a gravitational change within the environment. Okay, it's kind of like a small localized gravitational field as such that occurs, and basically what this Thomas Fusco did was he's kind of he's not a scientist, but he's educated in science. And when he was kind of working on his theory, and he's based this work over 30 years before we released it. He spoke to a physicist and said, right, look, I'm going to ask you this hypothetical question. He said, should a local occur and an independent gravitational field in a local space, if that was to manifest, you say, in a room, he said, what sort of effects would I likely to occur within that environment? And this physicist said, well, you'll notice there will be temperature fluctuations. You'll notice that there will be, air pressure changes. There would also occur, you'd also witness electromagnetic field occurrences and changes. You would also, at certain times, you may even witness gamma radiation within your life and so forth. And that's, this is something, that I need, that I need to focus my attention on, because
it's everything. It's everything that you can actually scientifically monitor.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, the paranormal field is an unproven science. But when you come to the scientific level of it, when you're monitoring certain environmental changes, such as, like you said, gamma changes, temperature, air pressure, etc., there are scientific equipment that is being used that can monitor this. Or if you've been able to do, you've been able to produce some equipment that can look at these. So the thing that interests me, and it always has done when I've spoken to yourself, I've spoken to Ashley and all this sort of stuff, is that what you're looking at is you're looking at something that is an event that happens in any paranormal, that can happen in any paranormal active location, that you can basically say, right, if the date is this, you can see this happening, which you've seen in the past through your data, and it's producing activity, then you've got a correlation. Is that sort of, just for layman's speak, is that what you're actually saying?
Yeah, in a sense, that's what I'm looking for. So, for example, with regards to the kind of the changes in the gravitational force. So basically, what it's saying is that it's an independent gravitational field. So basically, what this theory states is that, say for example, this is just an example, like you experience a sighting of an apparition, okay? Yeah. In order for that apparition to present or to be visualized in our physical physical world, how we perceive things, basically for that apparition to appear, this gravitational field bubble, as he defines it, it's actually in the book, he defines it as a differential field bubble, but to make it clearer, in more recent years, he just refers to it as gravitational field bubble. So this kind of opening or kind of bubble of space-time has to emerge in the local environment. And basically it goes through, and then basically information from what he calls a non-physical realm or dimension goes through a process of materializing. So this information of this apparition goes through this process. So when it gets to the light speed of light barrier, it then becomes physical. It becomes matter, okay? But it can only become matter as long as this space in of gravity appears or manifests within its local environment. So once it gets there, it materializes. Matter materializes within this gravitational field bubble. So that's how the apparition, the theory is, the apparition will appear because this opening of space-time is allowing for the matter to present in our local environment. Yeah,
okay. Which I understand. So basically, certain events happen, creates this bubble to be able to produce this manifestation, as you've said.
Yeah.
Would you, from a point of view, which I've just when I'm listening to that, is that could happen when there's nobody there?
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
So what the thing that what I'm interested in the way when you talk about this sort of stuff is, if you're there and you see this thing happen and the environment is spot on and it produces a bubble, you see the manifestation. how does that theory interact with when spirit can interact with yourself? Are you talking a physical? Are you talking an actual spirit, or are you talking a playback like the stone tape theory? Are you talking about something that is basically tangible when it happens, that you can interact with it, or is it just going to go through its motions, etc., etc.?
What I'm doing is I'm putting aside at the moment. I'm putting aside the fact, the kind of traditional thinking of it being this spirit, this or anything residual. What I'm looking at is the kind of the mechanism for this phenomena. Okay, so what I'm saying is that we need to gather this data to better understand how it happens.
Yeah, but I can understand you saying about capturing the data, looking at how it happens, but there's got to be a certain element of it is how it interacts with people that actually see that are actually there at that particular moment in time. That also has to have some sort of cause mentality to be able to happen as well.
What do you mean, Carl?
What I'm trying to say is if this bubble happens, this thing then appears, but then interacts with somebody that's physically there, you are as a person causing something to interact with this bubble to be able to interact with whatever's happening.
Well, it depends what it is, doesn't it? It might be.
I'm just saying on the course where you said about a manifestation, because some people will say, like they say, they see this thing and it just walks through a room, doesn't interact. But then sometimes somebody sees something else, or something else happens that basically will interact. So what I'm trying to say is, how does your theory come into it when? Yes, I can understand the complete aspect of it where you're looking at it and you're looking at the cause of things happening, like we said about the different element changes, etc. But how does that fall into line with people who see, hear, or certain things that happen that aren't? There's nobody there. There's movement, etc. But there's got to be some sort of cause apart from everything else to be able to interact with other people.
Well, we first have to establish when regards to kind of interaction and understanding that. Okay, so for example, we know that there are various phenomena where people can kind of interact, or say for example, mediums. Okay, they can pick up on events of the past, or people that have previously been there. But what it's always referred to is that it is a spirit. Okay, that this is the person that still resides on on this physical plane, but in a spirit form. But we don't know. We don't actually know. This spirit is and how it works, and and how it kind of interacts with us. Okay.
Yeah.
So what everything within our kind of physical world is a product of information. Yep.
Yep. Absolutely.
Right. So even if it's even if it is an apparition, it's an interacting apparition. Yeah, the information has to exist from somewhere. Okay. So this, what the process works for both. So let's go down. So for traditional residual phenomena, which is the apparition appears but doesn't interact and walks through walls, doesn't have any interaction because it's basically this recording. Okay.
Yeah.
Same process works for that as well. Okay, so it could just be that one manifestation is the information presents as the traditional residual form. Yeah, it doesn't interact. It's just this kind of, the information of this person is walking, across this kind of, like across a corridor or whatever.
Yeah. Roman soldiers walking through the cellar and all that sort of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, but we also know, let's talk about the human consciousness. Okay, one of the many mysteries of life, isn't it? No one really knows, really where human consciousness exists.
Absolutely,
what it is. Okay, so we don't know if this is also interlinked with this non-physical element. Okay, this is what I'm saying. You have to sometimes have some form of framework to work from in order to understand something. Whether or not that framework is correct, Who knows? But you have to have that. So this is a framework which I'm testing at the moment to see if there is any correlation. So that's why you run certain experiments. So for example, I will run one experiment, or run sets of data at a haunted location, because then that might be able to, so where I can kind of capture data with regards to an apparition appearing, or or some audio phenomena, okay, like an EVP or something like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the you capture that data, but also as well you'd want to capture that data in a different format. So there is a means that there are kind of talks at the moment between me and Ashley where we're looking at maybe setting up a kind of what do they call it, physical trance mediumship group, and having it in a kind of more kind of fixed and kind of more controlled environment, okay, and seeing the difference in data if there is any difference in kind of, and do you see what I mean? So because we need to understand things from a human consciousness point of view, because there's the theories of the collective consciousness. What is that? Where is this collective consciousness if it exists? Because I do really feel that human consciousness isn't actually connected to the brain. That the brain is more of a kind of receiver than it is that it stores and retains, our kind of personality and our kind of, our consciousness as such. This is just my kind of thinking of it. That we as our kind of soul, that information, everything about us isn't necessarily physically, confined to our body, but that exists somewhere else, and our brain is just the receiver for that information about us. Yeah.
I completely accept that train of thought. But because I know I can guarantee there's people listening going, well, okay, that's fair enough if you're talking about that type of this, that type of that, but what happens about this that? So I'm
absolutely,
I'm just trying to be the sort of person that looks at it and goes, I completely understand that. And this is something that I've spoken to Ashley about, is I believe there is a correlation between certain environment changes that certain things happen, as you said as well. And I've looked, and I have this idea in my head, which I'm trying to work out how to physically do this. And luckily over the last couple of weeks, I'm actually talking to somebody that potentially could help me come up with a device that it's to do with the light spectrum.
Okay.
And that's something that because I want to look at light spectrum, because obviously when you've got photography and stuff like that and you pick up something, nothing on the same lines as your guys, but I'm just trying to work out, I've got an idea that I want to look at. So you go down these different paths, and I think that, and I completely agree with you, there's certain correlations to environment change that can be monitored, that when activity happens, different environmental changes happen. Mm-hmm. And this is why I'm fascinated with what you're doing, is because it's sort of similar ethos to what I look at. Mm-hmm. Obviously, I have a lot of different types of other gadgets which I use, which, as you know, I have umpteen different gadgets I use and all that sort of stuff. But I have to understand how they work before I will even contemplate using them. I need to know the false positives, etc., etc. But with your theory, it's more of a fluid way of looking at it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, what? So basically, he makes his prediction that these things occur. So what I have to then go out and do is set up some sort of test equipment that will measure these effects and gather the data. Like most investigations, people go into a night investigation, do their, gather their, the evidence, or run the investigation to gather what evidence they get, and then say, this is what we found. This is not going to work that way. This could take a couple of years to find what I need from it. To get a set of data.
Would you need a location which you can go in regularly to be able?
Yeah, and that's something that I am working on at this moment. That there is someone that I have approached, who's local to me, who I contacted back in September. They said that they would consider it, but they were busy at the time. Then I didn't hear anything from them for a while, and I thought, okay, this is a no-go, and I started looking at somewhere else. But they contacted me a month ago and said, look, I haven't forgotten about you. We're just extremely busy. The property at this moment isn't safe to access. But, once everything's calmed down, I'll be in contact with you. So I said, okay, well, that's great. So, I didn't have to chase up. They approached me again with that information. So I'm hopeful because it's the perfect location for me. And I think if I can get into that location, that will provide me with, a kind of hub for me to kind of gather that data, But this is the problem. It's not something I'm going to get from doing it over one night. And like you're saying, Carl, you're exactly right. If I can get to that, if I can have that one location that is consistent, and I can run the data over multiple times, and run the experiment over multiple times and get the data, and for me, I'm happy just gathering the kind, just normal sets of data, just read normal environmental, information that, it doesn't present any difference, because at least then I know that if it comes back time and time again with the same information, that if there is one occurrence that is completely different and gives me something completely different, then I know that that's something of interest that I need to take. I need to look into more in detail. Absolutely. And, so that's the good thing about this, is that all the tests that I've run, so I've run many tests just in my house alone, just to kind of see how it operates, make sure there's no flaws in the process. And then obviously I've done a field test as well, and it produced the same results. Yeah, it was consistent with all my home tests, and I thought, great, I know I'm on. It's working how I felt it should. Yeah,
so every time I've spoken to yourself or spoken to Ashley about what you guys have been up to, the thing that always comes into the back of my mind is what you're looking for. Is you're looking for something that you can do regular stuff, day in, day out, all times of the day, whether it's morning, afternoon, night time, and just monitor the data. And then if like as you just said, if something then changes, you can then basically look at what has changed in an environmental. If there's something that happens, like something moves or something gets thrown or blah, 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 because you can, if you're in that location day in regular times, you can set things up. You can set, exactly where everything is, and if something moves and you don't see it because whatever, but you've got the data behind it and there's a spike, you then have a correlation to think, hang on, there's been that sort of change in the environmental when something has happened. And that, I think, is very, very interesting, and that's something which fascinates me, is if you can basically then say, here's a set of data and this is a case study, we've done it so many times, and when alleged paranormal activity happens, there's this data correlation. So you can then look at other venues in the same way. And then you can roll it out and roll it out and roll it out. Isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely. But the thing about anything which, with regards to what you do, so if, for example, obviously I set up this experiment, I run the the experiment. I hope to capture the data that hopefully supports what this theory states or predicts. If it does, then great. I've captured the data. I've analysed it. It kind of marries up with the predictions that are made under the theory. But like any experiment, it needs to be repeatable data. So I will need other people in the paranormal community, or also we will. I say we because I'm supporting someone else who's developed the theory. He's not. He's only a theorist. He's not into kind of the field. He just devised the theory. So I'm running these experiments in order to help him see any weight theory. But if there is, then I need other people. People like yourself, other people in the field to also run the same experiments. Or if they've if they're able to develop something better, do so, and run this, and gather the same data, and let's see what they get, and if it's consistent with the data I've got, and then, it's consistent with the data other people have got, then, we're looking at something that potentially could be, an eye-opener for the paranormal field. You see what I mean?
Absolutely. If you can basically find a correlation between things that happen and activity, then if you then are monitoring a location and you see that sudden environmental change, you can sort of, I don't want to use the word, but I'm going to use it, predict activity.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, either predict
in
activity or
in a kind.
Yes. I suppose so. I suppose if the set of data you're getting is so specific and in detail with regards to the measurement of what you're gathering, then maybe I'm not saying for definite, because we don't know, because you're not going to know that until you gather the data. But if it was that specific, that in such kind of detail, that you may be able to kind of have a good estimate with regards to what phenomena may present at a particular time. Sorry, go on. You go on. No, go on.
Just while you were saying, I was just thinking, if you can correlate this and then sort of kind of predict blah, 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 and there is a way in the future where you could go to a location and recreate the data that you've got, just for a scenario, drop the EMF, rise the air pressure, ionize this, that you've basically created when you've been looking at what's happened. If you can then recreate that, do you think you can then recreate activity in any location?
That's a good point. I don't know, because it would depend on whether or not that would manipulate the gravitational field, whether or not it's a one-way process.
Thing, like you say, manipulate and produce that bubble.
I think there's potential. I think we need to understand it more before we can get to that point. I mean, this is the problem with the thing. It's such a radical way of thinking and a radical theory that is hard. Even it's still hard for me to kind of completely grasp it. Yeah, exactly. Because this is the bit that kind of makes people think, hang on a minute, what is it not? Because in some respects, what the theory is, it's not a theory of the paranormal. It's a theory of everything. Yeah. Okay. What it does is it's aimed to answer many questions. So it's not aimed to answer paranormal phenomena. It was always aimed to answer many different things with regards to the universe. And what it all incorporates is lots of phenomena that people observe in the distant universe as well. Yeah. And gravity is one of the biggest mysteries still within physics, okay? Whenever they try to unify gravity with electromagnetism and stuff like that, with the unified field theories, gravity is always the stumbling block, yeah? So we know, okay, in the universe that there is 90% more gravitational effect than there is physical mass to explain it, okay? So we know that science... and this is, we say this because it's a hypothetical theory, okay, is that to explain these certain effects or bendings of space that create all these different kind of optical illusions in space, they come up with this invisible matter called dark matter, okay? That makes up another 25%. And there's other mysteries in the universe, okay? So we know that our universe is expanding, but we also know that the universe is also accelerating, okay? So there needs to be some sort of force in order to do so. So what that is that they created this of another hypothetical force called dark energy. Okay. Now, what this theory also incorporates is a means to eradicate dark matter and dark energy, because they haven't got any scientific evidence to support that they even exist. Yeah. They talk about it like it exists, but they haven't got the evidence. And in fact, if you watch more recent documentaries on dark matter and dark energy, most scientists that are actually working on research in connection to it are actually starting to think, do you know what? It might not even exist. Yeah? because they don't have the proof that it exists. Because the only reason it's there is because they know that the current status around that theory with regards to Einstein's work is that Einstein says that the bending of space-time is a product of the mass that is obviously embedded in space-time, right? So it's the mass of, like, say, the sun that basically creates that indent in the space-time that causes us and other planets in our solar system to orbit, right? Yeah. But there's so much more gravitational effect that so, for example, some of these effects we observe in the distant universe, in like galaxy clusters and things like that, there is not enough mass to create the gravitational effect within these areas. Okay, so that's why dark matter was there, because they need that matter to exist in order to create that bending of space. Yeah, but they can't detect it. They can't detect it. It's not detectable, and every experiment that's been designed in order to detect this dark matter, they can't find any physical evidence to support it. Even though they've built the Hadron Collider, again, another means to try and see if they can detect this dark matter. They can't detect it. It's not there. So far it's not there. So this theory is there to also explain that effect. So, for example, it explains that it's not actual mass that it creates the bending in space. It's the polarity of the gravitational field or force presenting in our physical dimension that creates the indent. So it's the gravitational polarity that is the force of the gravity to create the indent. So hence why that explains why we have more gravitational effect, because it's the force applied coming from the non-physical realm where the information of our existence or our universe exists, where it starts to present in our four-dimensional reality, is why it creates that pressure, that indent within local space-time. That's what theory states, and then what it does is it eradicates the means for having dark matter and dark energy into the equation.
Okay,
it's a radical. So so this is the biggest part of it, and this is when he told me, it kind of blew me away a little bit. It's still hard to kind of grasp it, but I still feel it's onto something. It's worth looking into.
Absolutely.
I think what he's saying is that. Yeah, go on.
I was just saying, I think that's the most important thing, is to progress this field, you've got to look at different other elements to it than the norm, because I think there's so many people will go down one route, whether it's this, that, and the other, but then you look at it on a completely different level, like you're doing, and a couple of other people in the field are doing. And that's something that is progressing the field, because you're asking more questions and just taking it on face value.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that's the important key about it, is you need to be basically questioning it, researching it, as you say, collecting the data, looking at everything, looking at cause and effect, and seeing deep, like, what is actually going on, instead of just going face value. I'm going into a haunted location, I'm going to get an EVP, I'm going to ask this question, I'm going to do that, I'm going to take some photos, job done, and then on to the next case.
Yeah.
And what you're saying is you want opportunity to hit the same location time and time again, so you can record the data, look at the facts. Once you've been able to get enough data, then you can look at possible cause and effects scientifically.
Yep.
And then progress it that way.
Absolutely. But the problem with what I've got is that I'm only able to kind of measure to a certain point. So all I'm able to detect is the primary effect that causes all the secondary effects that we observe in a paranormal location. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Because the kind of primary kind of cause is what is deemed to be not physical. It's not necessarily part of our four-dimensional reality of space and time. Because it's what. So, for example, the Big Bang Theory, you know, that everything emerged from this singularity. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what they say is once the Big Bang occurred, the singularity dissipated, right? You know, ceased to exist. But what this theory states is that the singularity never dissipated; it still exists, and that space-time is still emerging from it.
So basically, it's similar to you throw a pebble in a lake, where it starts, the ripples go out and out and out, but it's still causing hours after you've initially thrown it in.
Absolutely, and hence why
in a layman's terms.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. So, for example, it's like, you know, going back to we know that, you know, that the space, you know, obviously the universe is expanding and accelerating. Okay, so if it's accelerated because space time is still emerging. Yeah, it's still growing. Yeah, and there needs to be some means for that to continue to emerge. Okay, and one of the things that actually now physicists are really starting to kind of focus their attention on is you know, because predominantly physics is just around what's physical. Yeah. But how can you measure how can you measure human emotion from a physical particle? How can you measure human consciousness by a physical particle? It doesn't. You can't. You can't because it's not physical. So we have
exactly what you said. Physical.
Exactly. So we have to look at. So now what they're looking at is the information. Information is kind of what they're starting to kind of focus on, because we now need to know where this information occurs. And actually, you know, there's so much, you know, the order of our universe is so well organized that there needs to be a pattern or a set of information that exists that has created the universe in the way it's, you know, kind of emerged. Yeah,
absolutely. So, well, time's ticking on, Graham. We've only got a few minutes left.
Okay.
I just want to cover a couple of other points. Obviously, knowing you, and I know what you're up to at the moment, you're going to be speaking at some conventions this year. One of them is in Wales at FearCon.
Yeah.
I want to just give a shout out for that and give a bit of a promotion to that. We'll post the links in the chat room. We'll post the links after the fact, but just give that a little bit of a shout out before we run out of time.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, you know, like I said, I'm going to be presenting my work and my experiment at FearCon, which is on the 21st of September of this year. I cannot pronounce for love nor money the name of where it is. It's in Wales, and I
think Margaret was so much easier last year to pronounce. This one, I can't even. I'd insult the Welsh people, so I'm not even going to attempt to say it. But there is a website. Go to the website. Tickets are available. Graham's speaking. There's a number of other people that are speaking. Just quickly, Graham, what's your views on haunted objects?
What's my view on haunted objects?
Yeah.
It's not something that I take much interest in, but I'm happy to listen to the people that believe in the haunted things. I'm happy to listen to what they have to say about it.
Cool. And also, Graham will also be. I think you'll be doing some other bits and bobs over through the next year, and obviously progressing your experiment as well. So I'm just looking at the time, and time is running out. And if I don't wrap it up shortly, I'm going to have one angry boss on my hands who'll be cutting me off shortly. So I would just like to quickly thank Graham for coming on. Absolutely amazing chat with you. I always am fascinated when I'm talking to you about your theories and what you're going through and everything like that. So I just personally like to thank Graham. We will post all your links up on the chat room and the social medias about it. So thank you very much, Graham, for coming on.
No, thank you. Thanks for having me, Carl. Appreciate it.
No, I'm going to get you back on. Maybe in a little while. I'm going to get you back on because I think we need to carry this on. We need to look at this in a little bit carry on because I think we could have done for a 2-hour, 3-hour show, but we're only
absolutely
into now, so I'm going to get you back on and we'll get this sorted. So thank you very much, Graham. That's the end of the show. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you missed out on the show when you listen to this, just go over to our YouTube channel, PSH Radio, and also Parasearch Radio. And in the words of Kerry, like, swipe, and subscribe. I'm not very good. She does it better than I do. But yeah, do all that business and listen to past shows. I'm going to be back next week. Not 100% sure what's going on next week, but it'll get advertised on social media. So, yeah, come on board. Once again, thanks, Graham, and thanks, everybody in the chat room. I can see there's many a conversation that's been going on in the chat room, and I'm going to catch up with it now so I can actually read the comments on the chat room, and then that's been brilliant. So, once again, Graham, thank you very much. All the listeners, thank you very much, and we will see you next week.
Cheers, thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for listening. Don't forget to join us for more shows throughout the week. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and the World Wide Web to keep up to date with all the shows right here on Parasearch Radio.